Good morning, grade 7s. Today we are going to be doing a cumulative assessment for circle graphs. So we're going to take all the different pieces that we have learned in the last several lessons, and I'm going to give you one assignment to do to show all these different steps. So the assignment is on Fresh Grade in the Resources tab. I've uploaded a file. I've said on there that you're able to either print off the page, fill it in, and then post a picture or upload it. Or if you want, you can just copy the table and the graph down onto a separate piece of paper and then take a picture of that if that's what's easiest. I'm going to go through an example of what filling in the table and creating your circle graph could look like, but I want you to remember that I am using different data. So I will show you how it works, but then you have to use the numbers I have given you. As I mentioned, I am using different data sets for my example. So these are not necessarily the same numbers that you will be dealing with on your question, but it is the same topic and the same chart, so we can go over how to fill in each part. Our first step is filling in the fractions. So for our fractions, the frequency tells us how many people chose pop or any of the examples, but we need to know out of how many people altogether. So to find that, we need to add up 7, 10, 6, 12, and 15, which should give you 50. So 50 will be our denominator for each one of these fractions. So they'll all be the frequency out of 50. Now, I will accept any of these numbers as your fraction. If you wanted, you could also reduce them. So when we have 10 out of 5, we could divide those both by 10 and get 1/5. But that's optional. Like this could become 3 out of 25, but I'm also fine with it just staying in that original form out of 50. I will accept either answer. To calculate the percentages, we actually have been given very nice numbers with this being out of 50, right? Because a percent is out of 100, so we know that to get from 50 to 100, we need to multiply by 2. So that will give us 14% for our first number. If you were set on doing the fish, you could also do your multiply and then divide, which would still give you 100 times 10, which is 1,000, and then divided by 50, which gives you 20. But it is probably easier to just go, oh, hey, I have to multiply it by 2, and that gives me 20%. So if we were looking at 6 out of 50, when we multiply it by 2, that gives us 12 out of 100. So 12 times 2 is 24%, and 15 times 2 is 30%. To double check, remember you can add up all of your percentages and they should add up to 100. To go from a percent to an angle, we need to figure out the percentage of 360 because 360 is a whole circle. So remember, we'll start by turning our percentage into a fraction. Of becomes times, and then we multiply it out. So 360 times 14 is 5,040 over, and then 100 times nothing is 100. It's not times 0, it's just we have an invisible 1 here. And then when you simplify this, so you divide 5,400 by 100, you get 50.4. So this would be our angle for pop. Then for 20%, we start by changing that into a fraction. So 20 out of 100 times 360 equals 7,200 out of 100, which equals 72. So milk is 72 degrees. 12% of 360 is going to become 12 out of 100 times 360, and 12 times 360 is 4,320 out of 100, which simplifies to 43.2. For water, we have 24% of 360, which gives us 24 out of 100 times 360, and 24 times 360 is 8,640, and then that's all out of 100, which simplifies to 86.4. And finally, we have other, which is 15% of 360. Oh, it's 30%. Whoops. So check your numbers, people. 30% of 360, which is 30 out of 100 times 360, which gives us 10,800 out of 100, which equals 108. So if you were to add up all of these angles, they should equal 360. So just a quick reminder, these should add up to 100%, and these should add up to 360%. You do not have to give me all of this work. I'm fine with you just filling in the table, but if you want to share your work with me as well to prove that you did do all of the work, that is fine. So I've just created a quick table of the angles here. So we're going to end up rounding some of our angles, but what you'll be doing is figuring out each section. So if we start at 0 and our first angle is 50.4 degrees. So we're going to draw a section that goes right to here. So when they say 50.4, it doesn't mean halfway between 50 and 60. That'd be 55. But it's going to go just after this long line here that equals 50. So I have lined up and created my section that is 50.4 degrees, and then I have labeled it pop. Then I am going to take my protractor and I will line it up with my next section, and I'm going to try to see where 72 degrees would go. So I've lined this up with 0, so then I'm going to look across to 72. So it should go 2 ticks after the 70. So I've created my next section that's 72 degrees, and I have labeled it milk. Then I'm going to line up to get my hot chocolate. So I'll line this up to make it be 0. And then I will find my measurement. That is, I'm going 43.2 degrees. So 43.2. So it should come to just about here. So there's my next section, hot chocolate. It's about 43.2 degrees. For water, we'll just keep doing the same thing. So we'll try to line it up with the center and with 0. And then find what would about 86 degrees be. So it's just going to be slightly closer to 90. So it'll be over here. Make sure you actually look at the right numbers. See, the first time I was looking at the bottom ones. It's going to be between 80 and 90, not 80 and 70. Okay? So there's my water section. It's about 86.5 degrees. And then if I measure my final section, it should put me at just about 108 degrees. So when I'm looking here, I can see that actually my section here is closer to 118 degrees. So I can then try and double check my other sections. And actually, if I look at my first section, because I'm using a funny ruler thing because my protractor won't let me do things on here, I'm actually closer to 40 degrees than 50 degrees. So my pop section is too small. So if I expanded that by another 10 degrees, then I would probably have sections that would match up fairly consistently. When you finish, you might need to still do some corrections, and that's okay. Then you just go back and double check. So if I look here, yep, that's a lot closer to 50. And if I line this one up here, then yeah, that's closer to 108. Okay? So try your best. You'll have an easier time with a real protractor, but it's okay if you're rounding a little bit to get those answers, and then just make sure that you label each section. So as I mentioned before, you can print off the page that I put in the resources section for this assignment and print it off, fill it in, and upload a picture, or you can just copy the chart and a circle graph into your notebook and upload a picture of that. There is no specific due date on this, just keep plugging through all of the math and hopefully get to this section by maybe the weekend.